Welcome to Forensic Friday,
where we examine the intersection of true crime, psychology, and the heart of being human in the middle of it all. Hello, forensic friends. Welcome back to Forensic Friday. How have you been, Nat?
I have to tell you, I had the weirdest dream last night. Do you ever have those stress dreams where you're back in school, whether it's high school, college, or grad school?
Absolutely.
So mine last night was about grad school.
Okay.
And I had missed like a whole semester of classes somehow. Like a whole semester. I haven't been in school since 2018.
Yeah.
Before that, I haven't been in school since 2017.
Oh my gosh.
I know, and I'm still having those stress dreams.
So how did you wake up feeling?
Terrified.
Can you imagine if you actually did miss a whole semester?
A whole semester of every class. Like sometimes my dreams are like I missed one class for the whole semester.
Right.
Like how did I miss one class?
Oh no, you missed every class?
I missed every single class for a whole semester.
See, mine have been more around I miss a class and then show up for a test.
Right.
Or miss a test. Like I've been cutting class because I did do that.
I believe that.
Right. Yeah, I know. I like my freedom sometimes, you know. I would cut a class, and so my fear was always that I would cut like 4 weeks in a row and then show up and there's a test, or I missed a test the last week or something. But my most common recurring dream is that I need to pee.
Oh no.
And I cannot find a place.
I've had that before.
Do you know that dream?
Well, it's usually because you have to pee while you're sleeping.
Or it's a gross bathroom. That's the other thing. It's like you're in a gross bathroom or something that's like, absolutely not. I would rather explode. I am just not, I cannot abide by this bathroom.
That's so funny. I've had those dreams.
For sure.
It's usually when I have to actually pee and I'm not waking up.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I wonder, and we've talked about this a lot, about dopamine in our brains and what's going on with screens and all the flashing and the constant stimulation that we're under.
Yes.
And it ties in a little bit to our topic today. Mm-hmm. So we are going to talk today about a female primary aggressor.
Okay.
Yes, which is a bit of a deviation.
Yeah.
Statistically, maybe women make up 20 to 25% of domestic violence offenders, based on current research. This could change. And we don't see this super often, specifically with a homicide.
Yeah, you're right. We don't really see that. We don't see it playing out that way.
Not nearly as often. Mm-hmm. And so this is a really interesting case. It's been in the headlines recently because in January of this year, Courtney Clenney is the name of our female offender, which we're going to get more into.
Something about her. Seeing some stuff about her.
She and her parents were actually charged with messing with the victim's computer after he died.
Her parents?
Her parents, too.
Oh,
so
dang.
There's literally a mugshot of her parents, which is kind of wild.
Wow.
So let me back up and give you just kind of like the 10,000-foot view, and then I can't wait to get your thoughts on this one.
Perfect.
So essentially, the basics of the case, we're going to go back to 2022.
Okay.
So on April 2nd, 2022, there was a call that went out to police from the front desk of a really popular, really expensive condominium in Miami, in the Edgewater neighborhood of Miami.
Okay.
Called the One Paraíso.
Okay.
Okay. And this is like fancy.
Okay.
I read that her rent was $10,000 a month. So you might ask yourself, how was this woman making $10,000 a month?
Yes.
Well,
we're in the wrong industry.
OnlyFans.
Oh, we're in the right industry.
We're in the right industry now.
I was like, we're in the wrong industry. How do I make $10,000 a month? But I just can't do it.
I can't. No. As cute as my feet are, I just don't know that I would make $10,000 a month on OnlyFans.
I 100% would not.
And we're not here to shame women.
No.
Do you make your money, whatever. However, you are going to have a certain type of connection.
Yeah.
In that arena.
Yes, absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
And so she's an OnlyFans influencer, whatever. I don't know what they call them.
I think that's, or model.
OnlyFans model. Okay, beautiful human. And that is why we named our podcast for this time Only Fans Murder in the Building.
Oh,
Like the show.
yes.
Only Murder in the Building, but only fans. Murder in the Building.
I love that.
And it's interesting they made such a huge deal about the building just because it is waterfront, gorgeous, so expensive, so fancy. And then you have this hot mess couple in the middle of this whole thing.
Right.
And so 911 is called on April 2nd, and the police come to the front desk and they find Courtney there.
Okay.
Courtney's at the front desk. Apparently, there had been a big disturbance. This was not uncommon, apparently, for these two. They had lived there about 4 months.
Okay.
And they fought all the time. And the neighbors later said there was just a history of fighting between these two.
Yeah.
She told police that she had broken up with him and he refused to leave.
Interesting.
She asked police for a restraining order and said he was living in her elevator room. I don't know what an elevator. I don't know if it was like.
Yeah, what is that? What is an elevator room?
I don't know if the elevator
is it an elevator
opened up into like her own private like living room. I don't know, but she said he was living in the elevator room.
Weird.
The police determined he's a legal resident of the building. He has not committed a crime. He's clearly her romantic partner, and he'd been there for 4 months.
Okay.
And if y'all don't know, you cannot just give someone the boot in 5 seconds. That is not how that works. If you're in a relationship, they're a resident of where they're living with you.
Yes.
You don't have the power, no matter how much money you have, to just evict someone in 5 seconds. You have to work those things out. So that happened on the 2nd. April 3rd.
How did you establish how long they've been dating?
They've been together for a few years.
Okay.
Great question. They had been together for a few years. They got together pre-COVID. I guess her partner, Christian Obumseli.
Okay.
Yeah, a little bit of a tricky name to pronounce. Had been her partner for several years.
Okay.
And there was a special note made that he was struggling financially kind of around this point. So in 2002-ish, 2001, he'd been kind of laid off. And so he was having a hard time financially.
Yeah.
And I get the picture that she was largely in control of the finances and obviously was making a lot of money.
Yes.
And she wanted him out. They had this fight and she wanted him out.
Okay.
I don't get the sense this was the first time she wanted him out, but she wanted him out enough that the police came.
Okay.
So fair. She didn't want him there.
Mm-hmm.
So on the 3rd of April, she calls 911 and she is hysterical. And her story is kind of all over the place. We're going to play a clip here in a second, but her story is kind of all over the place. She's not denying that she did something because there's only the two of them.
Okay.
In this condo, and he's bleeding from the shoulder and kind of moaning, and she's just freaking out. So I'm gonna play just this.
Okay.
So
video. He was alive when the police got there.
He was alive when police got there.
Wow. Okay.
So there's a little bit of footage here that I'm gonna play.
Okay.
Now, what's the line? Operator Joe, what is the address of your emergency? Area man, please.
3101. It's 130, so 130.
Ma'am, listen to me. You need to stop screaming on the line and give me the address.
3101.
You're gonna die. I can't feel my arm.
3101.
I can't feel my arm.
Ma'am, so my boyfriend is dying of a stab.
Ma'am, what is the address?
What's that? What's the address, baby?
3131.
3131 Northeast 7th Ave. Please, God, please. Come see my boyfriend.
Ma'am, is this a house apartment or a business?
512-745-3582.
Is this a house apartment or a business?
Baby, I'm so sorry. Baby.
Ma'am, can you hear me?
If you have a stab wound to his shoulder, you can sit down.
What do you mean he has a stab wound on his shoulder, ma'am?
Yes, he's bleeding from his shoulder.
Rescue, this is PD Physician Juliet. The caller, ma'am, hold on one moment. The caller advised the address is 3131 Northeast 7th Avenue, 31 Northeast 7th Avenue. The phone number is verified. The caller advised that her boyfriend has a stab wound. Okay, is this a house, apartment, or a business?
Listen, please, God, please,
Listen, ma'am. Listen, I'm sending help. I need you to tell me exactly what happened. I'm sending help. How old is he? Ma'am, how old is he? Is he awake? Hello? Hello?
Yeah, thoughts?
That was
That was
chilling.
so intense.
Yeah.
So,
like my body hurts.
yeah, I read
Ugh.
the transcript. I hadn't heard it. And I remembered that he said, I can't feel my arm.
Mm-hmm. Well, he says, I might die or I'm gonna die. I can't feel my arm.
Ugh,
That is wild.
that's so terrible.
My really sick sense of humor part of me, when I'm like so uncomfortable, I literally just want to be like, get that damn dog out of the
I know.
way.
I know. Well, and also here's
Like,
this is a side note because we all need a little break after that. Why are 911 operators universally rude? Like, I de-escalate people for a living. That is it. I don't know.
yes.
It's like,
Oh
do they go
my
to
gosh.
school where they say, "Hey, sass the person on the phone, it'll bring you back to earth" or something?
Yeah.
I've never in my life has anyone ever told me in a training, be a little bit rude, they'll calm down. I've never heard it in all my,
Yeah.
almost 20 years.
No, like what? Like you are the first person someone is calling in panic and crisis, and you're gonna be
I
rude?
get that that's not the time to empathize, right? Like, we're not trying to be a baby therapist in a
No, but
911 call, but
you could be like, "Hey, I can't understand you. I need you to calm down. I need you to take a minute,
yes.
take a breath, calm down. I can't understand you." Like,
Yeah, or
you
even
have to,
like, ma'am, I really need the address so that we can get you help right away. Even that, be direct.
yes.
Anyway, that bugs me in literally every 911 call that I hear, which unfortunately is quite a few.
They're all
a little
mean.
bit mean. Now, maybe there's something to that. So if you know something I don't know, please fill us in. But
Yeah.
I mean, you and I've been to many a de-escalation training. We've also been yelled at in the office. We've had people have panic attacks, all the things. Never have I ever thought rudeness would get something done faster. But you know what? I could be wrong.
I've actually accidentally tried that. Totally on accident, and it doesn't
I know
work.
that's true. I feel like I've been there when that's happened before.
You have.
Not else.
It's been in your office.
That's true. That's true. So,
happened within the last year.
remember the time that you had to take a time out in group because you got so mad that you turned into a literal thermometer?
You looked at me, you're like, what do you need? And I was like, I'm teaching timeouts. I think I need
You
a timeout.
100% needed a timeout. You demonstrated it very well.
I need a timeout after that 911
I know.
call.
Hopefully we've all grounded ourselves with a tiny bit of humor. I mean, I don't know if we're funny, but hopefully that was helpful a little bit for some of us. What sticks out to you, Nat, in that 911 call?
Oof. Well, like I said before, you've done more of this case research, but my automatic reaction is she is terrified. Yes. She is absolutely terrified. She is panicking. She's apologizing. That is really interesting when she starts to apologize. Yes. And I wonder if that comes out later in like the court stuff. I don't know. But she starts apologizing, like, I'm so sorry, I'm sorry. So clearly she didn't mean to I mean, obviously because I know the situation of the case, at the in that moment, I don't think she thought she was going to hurt him that bad. Obviously, her intention was to hurt him, but I don't think she meant to hurt him.
Well, and this is a weird thing that we sometimes have to explain to people. A lot of people would look at this and go, yeah, if you stab someone, you hurt them and you could kill them and duh, right? But also sometimes in the heat of the moment, right? People do things and they're not thinking, and it has a ramification that they clearly have not thought all the way through. You can look up the actual video. She's covered in blood. She's barely wearing any clothes, so it's almost hard because they had to blur out her body.
Okay.
But she is covered in blood. I mean, even in her face, like she's got blood on her face. If I stumbled across her, I would think something happened to her. That's how bloody she was.
Wow.
And he's kind of moaning. He's down. So he's down.
Yeah. That's a lot of blood from him.
And you can hear how there's just a lot of kind of muffled sounds.
Yeah.
They handcuffed her and immediately kind of took her out onto the balcony. They were like, we got to get her out of the situation.
Yeah.
And she's really frustrated with the police because she's yelling things like, is he okay? What am I going to do? He's my other half. She's freaking out. And the police are like, we have to figure out what's going on. Clearly, this man's been hurt by you. And again, she's not denying that. So her initial story. Okay.
Here we go.
And we've got police, police are working on Christian in the other room. Right? So police are working on Christian. They're trying to keep him alive. Her initial story is she threw this knife at him. From 10 feet away for self-defense.
She threw a knife at him from 10 feet away in self-defense.
From 10 feet away. So if you picture like a cross.
And she had blood all over her.
All over her. Blood all over her. But apparently she ran to him, cradled his head. When the cops came in, she was all up in his business. But I mean, it was.
Everywhere.
It was everywhere.
Yeah.
So 10 feet, I mean, if you think about kind of a smallish bedroom, 10 feet across, like thrown from one end to the other.
Yeah.
What kind of knife did she throw? Right? That would stick that way. And also, why would you throw a knife? Like, if you're trying to defend yourself and you're 10 feet away from someone,
run.
You have options at that point.
Yeah, get out.
No weapons. He had no weapons. There were no weapons. There were no signs of a struggle, and she had absolutely no injuries.
Wow.
None of the marks on her, none of the blood on her was hers.
Right.
This is all his blood all over her. So she's detained. Ironically, when she's detained, all this content is still posting because you know how you can schedule posts?
Yeah.
Well, she has 2 million followers on Instagram.
Oh my gosh.
2 million followers. So there is still this stuff happening even as she's detained.
Yeah.
So her followers didn't know for a hot minute that anything was going on until it really hit the news.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
But even when she was in jail, things were publishing.
Oh my gosh.
Right? So here's the facts on the injuries. And I think this I want your input on.
Okay.
So a lot of our clients think that their narrative is just gold, right? Like, I'm giving you my narrative. Why in the world would you suspect something different?
Right.
Well, sometimes it doesn't make sense.
Right.
Sometimes it just straight up doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's really complex and there's a lot of pieces. Sometimes there's not. This one's not complex. Okay. There's one stab wound.
And does it say where it was on his body?
Yes. So in his shoulder.
Okay.
In a downward direction.
That's like not throwing.
You literally cannot.
Unless she was standing above him.
And even then, 10 feet? Was she on a ladder?
I know.
It just falls apart real quick, like some of these cases do. So it took force. This knife went 3 inches into his shoulder blade.
Oh my God.
Like the upper part of his shoulder. Kind of his back. I think it was a little bit higher.
Okay.
But shoulder. In a downward motion.
Yeah. I mean, my shoulder popped out of place, and that's painful enough.
Oh, I know. You get in pain with your shoulder. Can you imagine a knife sticking out of it?
No.
Maybe it feels like that right now with your injury.
Sometimes.
I don't know. So immediately, her report does not line up. Doesn't line up. Also, as she starts to kind of say this self-defense narrative, which is little by little coming out as
Yep.
she's panicking.
Yep.
Right? I'm sorry, but we got a couple things to talk about here. What do I always say about our female offenders? They're some of our most violent,
Yes.
most terrifying, and they're stabby.
They're super stabby.
They are just stabby. And I just made somebody laugh the other day in a training with law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
Women, it's not uncommon for women to get a weapon because of size differential.
I was just going to say, we both know that they use weapons.
We know
more
this.
often.
That's not the part that's funny.
No.
The part that's interesting, though, is when a woman stabs a man in the back, or in this case, in a shoulder,
Mm-hmm.
in a downward motion.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, he is taller than her. He's not standing over her and she stabbed him in the shoulder. That didn't happen.
Right.
This man was likely sitting down,
Interesting.
right?
Yeah.
Stabbed in the shoulder. It goes in 3 inches. This was aggressive,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you and I've talked with lots of women actually who've stabbed in the back.
Yeah.
I don't know what
And
kind
then
of
say it's
self-defense.
self-defense.
Yeah, I don't know how you're defending yourself stabbing, and especially if you chase and stab someone in the back.
Yes.
Then that self-defense claim gets real hard.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And we always talk about in female DV, we do not want to arrest a victim. We do not want
Ever.
to punish a victim
Yep.
for acting in a manner that she needed to save her life.
Mm-hmm.
There is zero evidence that that's what was happening in this case. And I
Right.
dug.
Right.
I dug and dug. Did he have a gun? Did he have a history of having firearms? Was there a
Mhm.
firearm in the apartment?
Like, were there other dynamics that happened? That,
Maybe he told her he was going to shoot her. Maybe
Yeah.
he said, I'll never leave and I'm going to kill you if you make me leave.
Yeah.
We don't know. But in any event, nothing made it critical for her to stab him
Right.
like she did.
Right.
So anyway, the police attended to him. He passed away from his injuries anyway.
Mm-hmm.
His family's trying to reach everybody. They didn't know what was going on. His family found out in news reports.
Okay.
They were not contacted. So I don't know what was going on with
Hmm.
that family situation that they couldn't get a hold of him.
Yeah. That's sad that they found out in news reports.
Yeah, I think that's really
Because
sad.
usually law enforcement's really good about
Yes,
informing the family before any news comes out.
absolutely. So she threatened to kill herself when she was arrested,
Okay.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And she was taken to a mental health treatment center in Florida using what's the Baker Act in Florida, which is if you are a risk to yourself or others in Florida, that's what their M1 hold essentially is,
Okay.
which means they'll hold them at the hospital to assess them for a period of time.
Okay.
I can't tell from the records exactly how long she was at the hospital, but it was a little bit. And then she was released waiting on trial, right? Or waiting. She's just waiting,
Right.
right? To see what's going to happen.
Yeah.
4 months later, she's yet again in a facility. This time it's a rehab facility of her choosing in Hawaii.
Oh, wow. That's
Mhm.
bougie.
Yep. But she was arrested in this rehab in Hawaii and charged with second-degree murder.
Okay. So they were able to charge her at least at that point.
Yes. So what's your initial reaction hearing just the crime itself? And then we're going to get into some of the relationship pieces.
So to the crime, I mean, it's pretty hard, like we just said, for her to take the self-defense route
Yep.
based on how it's all going.
Absolutely. I just don't see it.
Right. And I mean, we both know some of the risk factors leading into domestic violence. Finances are one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so if he's
And they
not
were
making-
struggling to make their rent. I didn't say that, but I say they. I don't know what he was doing for work.
Sure.
She was struggling to pay the rent. And the
Okay.
rent was for sure $10,000
That
a
is
month,
insane.
which is $120,000 a year.
That is insane.
So even in Colorado, I mean, real estate in Colorado has gotten ridiculous.
Mhm.
But $10,000 a month?
Yeah. One, if she's struggling to make rent, he's struggling to make money, or
Yeah.
he's struggling with finances. We know that that's a huge risk factor for domestic violence to increase. There's
Yes.
probably already power and control dynamics happening.
Absolutely.
And then she can't make her rent.
Mm,
She's this public figure,
yes.
right? She's not going to move.
No.
She's not going to lower her standards. So
No.
they get into this big blow up fight and she goes after him.
The other thing is, one of his friends made the comment that he was just so financially vulnerable. I get the sense he was pretty devastated to be laid off during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And we saw this with so many of our clients.
Yeah.
COVID was nuts. We had
COVID was
no
insane.
plan for COVID.
No.
Nobody anticipates a global pandemic. That
No.
was insane.
Yeah.
I remember us laughing at work about it until it hit,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And so he was in a vulnerable position.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if that played a role a bit in what he was willing to put up with in terms of her behavior.
Yeah.
Which is something that we see in all relationships.
Yeah.
When one person is in more control financially,
Yeah.
they are in a better position to be an abuser.
Yeah.
Because they just have more control.
Yep.
And it's a little bit harder for the victim to get away.
Yeah.
If they don't have the resources.
Yeah.
What's he supposed to do in Miami? Maybe he doesn't have
Family.
the financial resources to leave.
Or just, I mean, if they struggle to get a hold of them.
Exactly.
They might not be close.
They may not be close.
And so he didn't have any, it sounds like he didn't have a huge support system, maybe some friends. But when you're in that dynamic, I mean, we've heard so many of our people talk about, they had friends, but they didn't want, especially for men, they didn't want to call and say, hey, my girlfriend or my wife's, kicking my ass.
Mm-mm.
Right? I mean, you and I both know they call less frequently. They make less reports.
Yes. These guys traveled. They traveled all the time. Well, it's the influencer lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
So they've got to travel. They got to get their pictures in different places, keep it interesting.
Yeah.
I think that's incredibly stressful anyway.
Yeah.
We've been laughing setting up our social media because it's like, how interesting are we really?
I know.
Right? So we're going to do our best for you guys, but I don't,
Yeah. We're not traveling to
we're not going to go to Portugal and do a photo shoot on the beach. Let's just put it that way. Like, I don't even know if Portugal has a beach.
I don't either.
Geography's not my strong suit. But anyway, we're not going to be traveling all over getting these pictures, but these two had kind of a jet setter lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And I do actually get the sense he was pretty close with his friends and family.
Okay.
But I don't know that they lived close.
Okay.
So because of this kind of lifestyle where they're moving around, they had only lived in this condo for 4 months. I wasn't able to locate, where does his family live? Did he have the option of going home? I think he was caught up in this lifestyle.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I can maybe buy.
Okay.
I don't know that she was trying to kill him. And I'll tell you why.
I would agree with that. But tell me what you think.
There's one stab wound, number one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Normally, if there's an intent to kill, there's numerous. I mean, it is like a rageful.
This feels like a really hard stab. This feels like not self-defense to me.
No.
But if she really wanted him dead,
it would look different.
It might look different.
Yeah.
It might look different. We don't know her. We haven't talked to her.
Well, and even where the stab wound is, it's not in the heart. It's not
or even his neck.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. It's not near his neck from what we know. Wasn't in his neck.
Nope. And so I'm not sure that she was trying to kill him. And you can hear.
I believe that.
There is some genuine distress. So let's talk Brian Laundrie. That dude was chilling with the police. He was chilling, acting unbothered that they were having fights.
Cucumber.
Right? Granted, the police were not there right after he killed her.
Right.
Maybe that would have looked different.
Yeah.
This chick's not okay. She's sobbing, she's screaming, she's crying. And one of the things when the officers got there that they noted, she was cradling his head and screaming, "Baby, wake up."
Oh my gosh.
Baby, wake up. Baby, wake up. Yeah. And she didn't immediately double down on the self-defense. That comes in a little bit more.
Yeah.
With the attorney. She did say that they were having a fight and she threw the knife and didn't think it would hit him, blah, 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 which that I don't buy. But she didn't double down on the self-defense until the attorney got involved.
Right.
So I think she was royally pissed off. They have a habit of fighting. And I'm not sure that she was trying to kill him. So psychologically, for me, this feels very much like a lack of emotional regulation and a reactive behavior.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it doesn't sound like she was trying, like you said, it doesn't sound like she was trying to kill him. It sounds like they were in a really gnarly fight. And as you and I both know, based on the power and control and the cycle of abuse, I mean, that escalates every time. And so I do believe they probably had these power and control dynamics. They were already in the cycle of violence themselves.
Yep.
And every time they got into these fights, it just got more and more intense. And so she escalated to that.
Yes.
But I don't think she wanted, and that's what we talk about a lot with our guys, and we'll probably get to here in a little bit. I don't think they want, like, if they're in their right mind, they don't want to hurt these people, the people that they are committed to, that they love.
Absolutely.
But like you said, the lack of self-regulation, mental health issues.
Well, and it gets harder and harder to control them.
Yes. Especially if you aren't feeling heard, you're overly stressed out. She's trying to contain and maintain this lavish lifestyle.
Absolutely.
And if it feels like that's at risk, I mean, you and I don't live at a $10,000 month rent status, but
yes,
if I am trying to put myself in her shoes, which is actually kind of hard. Usually I'm pretty good at it, but it's kind of hard right now. And if I feel like my lifestyle's at risk, she lost it.
Well, let's talk about OnlyFans for half a second.
Okay.
This is tricky. So I feel like I'm allowed to speak on this. I'll tell you why.
Love that.
I work with women.
Yeah.
I work with women coming from all different places. Stay-at-home mamas. I work with career, really strong business women. I work with exotic dancers. I've worked with a few porn stars. I mean, I really have worked with a lot of different women.
Yeah.
Couple things about OnlyFans. Number one, constant need to be on display and performing in one way or another, whether it's photos, videos, whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
You're constantly kind of putting yourself out there. And I don't want to make any kind of judgment about women who participate in sex work or any of that kind of stuff.
Men. I mean,
men do too. Right. We're not here to judge them.
No.
I will say though, in my clinical experience, there is typically an element of trauma or a lack of privilege or something that supports those behaviors.
Or desperation.
It can be desperation. And then sometimes when we get in, we can't back out of it, which is also true for people who deal drugs.
Yep.
It's like all of a sudden I have a lifestyle based on $10,000 a month. I can't stop if I want to.
Right.
What am I going to do? Go work at Arby's?
Right.
I can't pay my rent.
And then you get we've worked with plenty of individuals more on the selling drugs part. Right. Not as much of the OnlyFans. But we've worked with plenty of individuals who were into selling and distributing substances.
Oh, yeah.
And they were the first to tell me, like, this is hard to go back to real life. I do not make the money I made.
No, if I can go work at McDonald's and pay all my bills late and not be able to buy things for my kids.
Even if they get a good job.
Absolutely.
Even if they get a job that does pay from what you and I would consider well.
Oh, yeah.
It's still not the same.
It is not the same. And don't even get me started. You and I talk all the time about when you have a record, how hard it is to get a job.
Yes.
And I don't know if she had a record or not. I didn't read anywhere that she had a record or if he did.
Yeah.
But the world just all of a sudden pins you in.
Yeah.
You get painted into a corner.
Yeah.
And sometimes people get stuck in these lifestyles that are just hard to maintain.
Yeah.
And I don't know the shelf life of an OnlyFans model, but I don't know that there's a lot of like 70 and 80-year-olds doing that. Maybe in the weirder demographics. I don't know. I've never met one of those.
No. Yeah. I have yet to meet someone.
I'm wondering too about the pressure around being young, staying young, being more and more beautiful.
Yeah.
I've been watching Vanderpump Rules, which we're gonna do.
Oh yeah.
We're for sure doing that. I can't wait. But I'm watching these women, beautiful young women, starting in I think they're all in their mid-20s in season 1. The stuff they are doing with their face, they are not recognizable.
Wow.
They are not, and part of it is and you'll see them actually go do these things.
Yeah.
They're trying to stay ahead of all the things. So we may laugh about my cryofacials and things.
They're great.
But I am not trying to not look like me.
Right.
Ever.
Right.
So the pressure, I can have empathy for the pressure. I can have empathy for a woman who has found a way to make this kind of money and was under some stress.
Yep.
I can have that.
Yeah.
But I do not buy self-defense for 1 second.
No. It's hard to believe.
So now let's talk about primary aggressor.
Okay.
Apart from the fact that the offense was so aggressive and not in line with any kind of self-defense narrative. There's literally no self-defense narrative that I would buy based on the injury.
You can't.
You can't. It's just, that's a tough sell.
Yeah.
When police really got to investigating, they found some really interesting things. The neighbors reported consistent domestic abuse. Their mutual friends talked about how she would hit him, shove him, curse him out, belittle him. She even used his race. She called him racially negative and charged slurs.
That's horrible.
In front of people, which is actually on the power and control wheel.
Yeah. Yep.
That is an actual power and control behavior.
Yeah.
She would engage in that kind of behavior. And then I think the most chilling part of this whole case is they were able to uncover years of messaging between the two of them.
Okay.
And I suspect this is why the parents and Courtney tried to get into that computer, phone, whatever they could get into.
Yeah.
Because the messages are so damning.
Ooh.
And so I wanted to share. Huh?
Do you have examples of any?
I do. I have, I think, the most chilling one that I read.
Okay.
This was sent. Let me see if I can find the date. It was a few months before the offense. February 28th, 2022.
Okay.
He texted her, and he was basically telling her, these are the things that you do to me. He was slapped, spat on, stabbed, and called a racial slur. So
she has stabbed him before.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, my goodness.
She has stabbed him before.
Okay. So she probably thought she could stab him and he wouldn't die again.
I really think there's a good chance that that's what happened. Yeah. I think you're right. The end of the text message, Nat, and this is so upsetting. Is love going to kill me? Is love going to kill me?
That's so sad.
And he sent that to her.
I know.
He sent that to her.
Did it say if she responded or no?
I didn't see a response, and I'm guessing that the attorneys are probably trying to keep that locked down as much as possible.
Yeah.
But her attorney released this statement. Courtney's actions reflected those of a young woman desperate to save herself from dying at the hands of her abuser.
Dang. So they are really trying to paint him as the primary aggressor.
They are now.
Oof.
They are now. Oof. And we saw footage, and we can put this on the website, but there is footage of her abusing him in an elevator.
Yeah, I saw that video.
Yep.
I saw that video. That was intense. She goes at him.
She goes at him, and interesting
pulling his hair, all of it.
This is the most interesting part of that when I think about the offense and the injury. Do you remember how she approached him?
I don't.
It's from behind.
Oh, in the elevator?
He's standing at the door, trying to mind his own business, and he's coming at her. She just
wigs out on him.
And wouldn't you know, she's punching him, and she's coming at him from the back towards a shoulder. She's trying to reach over his shoulder to get him in the face, I think. I think she's trying to hit him in the face. We are such creatures of habit. And when I think about where she stabbed him, I think she had a history of trying to assault him. And he was a bigger guy, and I think he would just turn around.
Yeah.
I think he would turn around so his face wasn't vulnerable.
Yeah.
Or right?
His front.
And he would just kind of protect himself by turning around.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, that elevator video, he's just standing there.
It's chilling.
It's hard. It's hard to watch.
Yeah. He is just standing there.
He's just standing there.
She's just
and she's going for it.
I've watched, other domestic violence stuff and, media stuff and whatever. And sometimes it's hard to tell who's the primary aggressor in some of it. I mean, this one's so blatant.
Yes.
It is just it screams.
And they may have had co-combative at one point. I certainly don't want to assume that he never raised a hand to her, but I don't know that I've seen many cases where it is this clear, certainly with a fatality.
Right.
Where it is this clear.
Right. Well, especially when a lot of, people in their life are coming forward saying, she did a lot of this stuff. She would say things that, she would call him names. She would hit him in front of them.
Absolutely.
It didn't sound like they were both toxic. And you and I both usually hear that.
Yes.
When we're doing some of our research around, no, they were both, I mean, shoot, the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp situation.
Yes.
They were both abusive.
We're going to get into that one too.
Oh,
that's
yeah,
wild.
that's going to be a good one.
That is true co-combative at its worst.
True co-combative.
It really is.
Mm-hmm.
This one doesn't feel like that to me. And when we talk about prevention, and that's one of the heart pieces for you and I both, is if the police had really sat down with him, really dug for some of those videos, said, hey, do you have any footage of their fight leading up to us being called?
Right.
Because a lot of the fight went down, I believe, in the lobby.
Okay.
And they already had footage from the elevator.
Okay. So was that the same day that she killed him?
Day before.
Oh, dang. Okay.
Day before. So once again, law enforcement rolls up. They're trying to figure out, here's this girl. She's saying he won't leave. She's saying she's trying to kick him out. She wants him evicted. She wants a protection order. He's sleeping in her elevator room, whatever that means. Once again, though, we have law enforcement roll up to a crazy scene. And I don't believe they even talked to him beyond just to find out that he was a resident.
Right.
Now, we know men underreport.
Almost, yeah.
They don't want their partner to get in trouble.
Yep.
I think it's really embarrassing for them. Again, it should not be.
Yeah.
Anyone can abuse anybody at any time.
Yeah.
But I think men feel embarrassed, and I've heard that before.
Yeah.
So maybe they did ask him. I wasn't there.
Yeah.
Maybe the cop said, hey, has she hit you? Has she come at you? And asked her the same thing. But I don't get that feel.
Yeah.
And what if they had sat with him and empowered him in a way to get out?
Yeah.
What if they'd even said, hey, you know what? Y'all are really mad. The neighbors get involved, Oh, and it wasn't, she's not the one who called. I think I said this, but I want to make sure I said this.
Yeah.
The front desk is who called the cops.
Dang.
Yeah, it was not her. I think I might have said earlier it was her. It was the front desk that called.
Okay.
Because they had been fighting by the lobby. Then you could hear them.
So they called already. They were fighting in the lobby the day that he got killed.
No, the day before.
Okay.
The day before. The front office called.
Okay.
I believe she called.
When she stabbed him?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And so it does sort of beg the question, could we have cooled that off? This also is the most perfect example, and there are so many, that if the parties are not separated, this is why we have mandatory arrest. This is why we have this kind of stuff now. I don't know that someone would have been arrested even if this happened in Colorado, because they hadn't been physical at that moment.
Yeah.
They were yelling at each other. They were fighting. She wanted him out. But there wasn't actually a report of domestic violence that day, the day before.
Interesting.
However, if he could have disengaged, if we could have given this some room to breathe and maybe resourced one or both of them, maybe this doesn't happen.
Yeah. Which goes to what we talked about, right? Is education is so important for everybody, but especially law enforcement.
Yes.
To be able to detect what is happening, right? And you and I both know domestic violence situations are the most lethal for law enforcement.
Yes.
So it's scary for them to go into these situations, especially, I mean, the Brian Laundrie and Gabby Petito case was a little different because they were getting pulled over, right? It was a little bit of a, even though it wasn't calm 2 seconds before they got pulled over, it calmed down when they got pulled over.
Right.
But when they go into someone's home or, apartment or whatever, that's dangerous for the police.
Oh, and by the way, it's dangerous for residents. So we've actually had cases, I've had cases where neighbors have been injured in crossfire and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So maybe societally, we actually need some education for people in charge of residences too. Big, condo buildings, apartment complexes, that kind of stuff, that when this happens, there's a risk to everyone involved.
Yeah.
If I'm upstairs and they're fighting downstairs and one of them pulls out a gun, I'm at risk.
Yeah.
Just sitting in my own living room.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's part of some of the firearm risk with men. I think what I am seeing with women, I can't think of a time. I am not saying this has not happened.
Yeah.
Men stab women. I personally, though, have not had a stabbing case from a man in a long time. I've had a man hurt himself with a knife and send a picture of that to his partner.
Okay.
But I actually have not had an incident where a man stabbed his partner. Threatened with a knife, yes, but not actually stabbed. I've had 4 female-involved stabbings just in the past 18 months to 2 years.
Yeah.
Literal
I'm not
stabbings.
surprised. Women use weapons.
That's the equalizer.
Yep.
And they are less likely to shoot their partners. It happens, but they're a little bit less likely to do that.
Yeah.
So my hope in this is, first of all, to bring some awareness to male victims, because that is a real thing.
It is a real thing.
And there are female primary aggressors. And as women, we're getting all the degrees. We're doing all the things. Like, we are large and in charge in many ways.
Yeah.
There's still a wage gap. There's still always going to be probably some level of inequity between men and women, because it's been systemic for generations. And we have a lot of women who've been abused who are saying no longer and maybe overcompensating.
Yeah.
We have more women in charge of finances with hardcore careers.
Yeah.
More men are hands-on and being stay-at-home dads, which is adorable and wonderful.
Yes.
And I love that we're seeing more and more men who are really involved with their children.
Yeah.
But we're actually seeing men go through some of the things that traditionally we've seen more women go through.
Yeah. I would agree with that. And I think you just nailed it about women are, I mean, we're growing in our careers. We're challenging ourselves. I think I can't remember where I read this, or maybe we just talked about it in one of our meetings, but I think there's more women getting degrees now than men.
Yes. I read that somewhere too.
Yeah. And so
we'll have to fact check it and put a source. But I read that, and probably you heard it from me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and so I do think women are becoming more often, not more often than men. There's still a pretty big discrepancy.
Yes.
But more often than past.
Yes.
Becoming the primary aggressors, because they're, they're more in charge. They're making more money.
We have a little more power.
We have a little bit more power.
And the law makes room for a self-defending victim.
Yes.
We do not have to require a self-defending victim to do domestic violence treatment. So if I have a woman come into my office for an evaluation, and it is crystal clear from the evidence, from the history, all the things that we look at, that this woman acted to save her own life.
Yeah.
Right? We don't have to recommend treatment.
No.
Now, what I tell my female groups all the time when I have 10 of them looking at me like, men suck, and how are you possibly going to help me with that? They're here because they broke the law around domestic violence, same as a men's group.
Yep.
The factors are different in some ways.
They look a little
different.
The
approaches sometimes look a little bit different. The considerations, we have some different considerations with women.
Yeah.
We have a higher incidence of trauma. Both populations have high levels of trauma.
Yeah, if there's domestic violence involved, I mean, there's a high correlation.
But when you're running a women's domestic violence group, you got a lot of sexual trauma and just a little bit more of that.
Yeah.
And if I put them in group, if I recommend treatment, it is because I have determined that they were either the primary aggressor or participated in the domestic violence offense in a manner in which they were not a self-defending victim.
Right.
And this woman, good luck to her.
Yeah.
Because her story is just not going to hold up.
It is going to be a hard case.
It's going to be a hard case.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think going back to what you said, the heart of all of that is, I mean, we always say this. It's about the education. Right. I mean, if either one of them, especially her, and him, I mean, had more education around what power and control look like, what codependency look like. I mean,
absolutely.
That screams codependence.
Yes.
All up and down.
Absolutely.
And so I think if there is more education and just awareness, we can start to prevent these things,
Yes.
right? Like we said, neither one of us believes she wanted to kill him. She stabbed him before and he didn't die. I genuinely think she thought that
he said that. For
Right,
goodness sakes,
right.
yes.
I don't think she wanted to kill him. I don't think she thought he was going to die because he hadn't yet.
I don't
But you
think
and I
either.
both know that if domestic violence or power and control is not stopped early on, that eventually that's kind of where it lands.
Well, and she's really unusual because of the typologies of domestic violence, which we haven't gotten into a ton of detail. We will someday.
Yeah.
The intimate partner terrorist, the one who really exists to hurt their partner, is almost always male.
Yeah.
Statistically. We see that anecdotally as well.
Yeah.
The really not co-combative. Women can be reactive, co-combative.
Yeah.
Women can survive previous domestic violence relationships and swing the other way in new relationships where they're like, never again.
Right.
You will never hurt me. I will get you before you get me.
Back when I worked with women in the domestic violence population, I mean, I had a lot of my women were like that, either in the same relationship or previous.
Yep.
And they just swing full force.
Yeah.
The other way.
We see that all the time.
Yeah.
This is an example of an intimate partner terrorism. I control you. I spit on you, which is its own risk factor on the DVRNA.
Yes.
One of the most disrespectful things we can do to another person is spit on them, call them racial slurs.
Yeah.
She had the financial power and control. I mean, this was an intimate partner terrorist situation.
Yeah.
Which is just unusual in women. So it's an interesting case. I am very glad she's behind bars. I feel pretty confident she would have done this and has done this before.
Yeah, I'd agree.
And I hope she gets some treatment because you know what? When you're incarcerated, we've talked about how like groups maybe aren't quite as effective incarcerated. They're still, they still work.
Sure.
I mean, there's still a good structure to learn.
Yeah.
But the feedback isn't always the same.
Right.
But if you can get a therapist, if you can get the right kind of trauma treatment, when you're incarcerated, you actually have the right structure and support and safety to do some real work. But again, resources.
Yes.
Resources.
And preventative.
Yes.
Our whole goal is preventative work.
Preventative work. And the other interesting thing is there were drugs involved. And there's some evidence that he was providing those drugs to her.
Oh, interesting.
Which is also kind of an interesting dynamic.
So do you think he was dealing?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know if he was dealing or if she just demanded to have her pills at a certain time during photo shoots and stuff. I don't know.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But one of the things that some of her friends noticed, because her friends ratted on her too. I mean, her friends were like, she hit him. We never saw him hit her.
Yeah.
She hit him all the time.
Yeah.
She embarrassed him, belittled him. They all said that.
Yeah.
I think the friends felt like the drugs were really affecting her behavior and that he was involved in that somehow, whether it was just using with her or...
Does it say what drug she was using?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
I always have my suspicions. But, But, you know, it did not say. And again, we don't know any of this. Speculation.
Yeah.
But I found that kind of interesting. So, again, prevention work.
Yeah.
But I hope today you guys have gotten a little exposure into the world of female domestic violence offenders.
Yep.
And as Natalie and I would say, we don't love the term offender, although it is accurate.
It is.
Because they've committed a domestic violence offense.
Yeah.
We tend to think of them as people
Human
who
beings.
have committed domestic violence offenses.
Yes.
People that have engaged in abusive behavior.
Yes.
And that applies here.
It does. It does. There's room for empathy for her. There's room for compassion. Both of those can exist along with consequences. You know, she did what she did.
She did what she did.
So.
And there was a GoFundMe for Christian. We always try to put some victim resources out there, but there was a GoFundMe. They had raised $64,000 as of the article I read, and the article was from January of this year.
Okay.
And so it's just something to consider. We'll put some notes in there if you want to contribute to their families or whatever. You know, we'll have some information on the website, but it's a tough case, Nat.
I know. Thanks for sharing it with us. And
Yep. And I'm pretty sure it was the only murder in the building. I'm certainly sure it was the only
Only
fans murder in the building.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Bye, forensic friends.
I'm Janine.
And I'm Nat.
And as always, thanks for listening and join us next week for more crime, psychology, and heart.